This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're talking about why women start over 90% of conflicts in relationships with zero intention of actually solving them. What makes them so argumentative? To understand this better, let's use men as a comparison. When was the last time a man started an argument? That's just not how they handle conflict, is it? Why? Because most men feel arguing is unproductive and beneath them, but women seem to thrive on it. Picture a man discussing any challenging issue. Men will bring up a subject to problem solve with calm logic. Now picture a woman discussing a challenging issue involving her behavior. That's right, you can't, because women don't do that. Women will usually get offended, or at least pretend they are, about anything that points to her possibly being wrong or accountable. Their go-to is to start an argument with lots of emotion. Why? Because this gets the subject off of them and their choices and puts it on anything else. Why is that important? Because it allows them to remain the exact same way without the pain and energy it takes to grow into a better person. That's their main goal, get the spotlight off of them immediately. There are a lot of different reasons for this, but a couple common examples. She doesn't want to let her husband down. This woman will be evasive but more sad than anything. Or she wants to protect her image as a perfect person who can do no wrong. This woman will get angry and start attacking. Men will rarely get angry or emotional when dealing with men since their brains understand if this goes too far, someone is getting punched in the face. So they usually remain respectful and calm. This pattern of dealing with conflict continues when they deal with women. On the other hand, women never think about physical conflict in those situations. So that's why some of them will go nuclear over anything, because they've allowed their pride and ego to get involved. And we all know some women will protect those at any cost, even if it means creating long-term damage by degrading her husband to do so. Horrible choice. But women do it all the time, and it needs to stop. But let's be honest about what's actually happening beneath the surface of these conflicts. Because the pattern isn't random. It's strategic, and once you recognize the strategy, you can't unsee it. When a woman starts a conflict over nothing, when she escalates a simple conversation into a full-scale argument, when she introduces emotion where logic should exist, she's not losing control. She's taking control. The chaos is the point, the emotion is the weapon, and the goal is to ensure that whatever issue you raised about her behavior gets buried under the avalanche of drama she just created. Think about the last time you tried to address something with your wife. Maybe it was something small, something reasonable. Hey, can we talk about the budget? We're overspending. Or, I notice the kids' homework isn't getting done. Can we figure out a system, simple questions, reasonable concerns, presented calmly? But what happened? Did she respond with, "You're right, let's problem solve"? Or did the conversation immediately transform into something else entirely? Suddenly you're not talking about the budget anymore. You're talking about how you never appreciate her, how you're always criticizing, how she works so hard and you don't even notice, how you're making her feel attacked. Wait. How did we get here? You asked about the budget. Now you're defending yourself against accusations you never saw coming. The subject changed completely, and somehow you're the one apologizing. That's not an accident. That's the strategy. Here's how it works in practice. You raise a legitimate concern about her behavior, something observable, something factual, something that affects the household or the relationship. Before you even finish explaining, she's already decided this conversation is a threat, not a threat to the relationship, a threat to her self-image. Because acknowledging she's wrong, admitting she made a mistake, accepting accountability for a behavior that needs to change, all of that requires something most women refuse to do, admit imperfection. So instead of engaging with the actual issue, she deploys what I call the deflection cascade. First, she reframes your concern as an attack. Why are you always criticizing me? You weren't criticizing. You were problem solving. But now the narrative is that you're the aggressor and she's the victim. Second, she introduces emotion to shut down logic. Tears, anger, hurt feelings, whatever works. Because once emotion enters, rational discussion exits. You can't logic your way through someone else's feelings. You can't present evidence against sadness. The conversation is no longer about facts. It's about her emotional state. And her emotional state is now your responsibility to fix. Third, she counterattacks with accumulated grievances. Well, what about the time She's pulling from her mental archive of every mistake you've ever made, every time you disappointed her, every moment you weren't perfect. None of it is relevant to the current issue, but that's the point. Relevance doesn't matter. Overwhelming you matters. Fourth, she threatens consequences. Withdrawal of affection, the silent treatment, dramatic declarations about how she can't handle this right now, implications that you're damaging the relationship by bringing this up. The message is clear. If you continue to hold her accountable, you will pay for it. And finally, if none of that works, she reframes the entire situation as your failure to communicate properly. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. If you'd approach this differently, you're not being fair. The issue itself is gone. Now you're being lectured on your communication style. By the time this cascade completes, the original issue, her behavior that needed to change, has vanished completely. It's buried under emotion, counter-accusations, and meta-arguments about how you discuss things. And she walks away having successfully avoided all accountability. You're exhausted. She's validated. The behavior continues. Nothing changes. And next time you need to address something, you'll think twice because you remember how much this cost you. That's not conflict. That's control. Men don't operate this way. When a man has an issue with another man, he brings it up directly. Hey, you said you'd handle this. You didn't. What happened? The other man responds with facts. You're right, I dropped the ball. Here's why. Here's how I'll fix it. Done. Resolved. 30 seconds. Why can't women do this? Because their ego is involved in a way men's isn't. A man can admit he made a mistake without feeling like his entire identity is under attack. His self-worth isn't tied to being perfect. He can be wrong about something and still be confident in who he is. But many women have constructed an identity around being beyond reproach. The good wife, the perfect mother, the woman who has it all together, the one who never makes mistakes. Admitting fault shatters that image. So instead of accepting reality, they defend the illusion. And defending the illusion requires attacking anyone who threatens it. Honestly, we all know men are just exhausted from not being able to talk to their wives about anything related to her behaviors. Women need to realize if a husband is actually talking to her about an issue, he is in problem-solving mode, not wife-attacking mode. Come on, ladies, grow up already. Your temper tantrums may have worked on your dad, but that is just a ridiculous, silly way to interact with your grown husband as a grown wife, isn't it? Let me tell you what happens to men over time in relationships where they can't address issues without triggering nuclear conflict. They stop trying. They stop bringing things up. They stop expecting partnership. They learn that peace is more valuable than progress. So they tolerate behaviors that damage the relationship. They accept standards that make their lives harder. They swallow resentment because expressing concerns costs more than it's worth. And slowly, they emotionally disconnect. Not because they stopped caring, but because caring requires communication, and communication has been weaponized against them. I counsel men who haven't had a productive conversation with their wives about her behavior in years. Not because he doesn't have concerns, but because every attempt results in a 3-day war where he ends up apologizing for things he didn't do wrong just to restore peace. These men describe walking on eggshells, calculating which issues are worth the explosion they'll cause, letting important things slide because addressing them means dealing with deflection, emotion, counterattacks, and punishment. They've learned that their wife can't handle feedback, so they stop giving it. And the relationship suffers in silence. One client told me he tried to discuss their finances after his wife overspent by $3,000 on clothes. Simple conversation. We agreed on a budget. What happened? Her response? She cried for an hour about how he makes her feel controlled. Then she didn't speak to him for 3 days. Then she accused him of not trusting her. Then she brought up a time he bought golf clubs 5 years ago. The overspending? Never addressed, never acknowledged, never resolved. The behavior continued, and he learned that protecting the budget wasn't worth a week of hell. So now he just watches the account drain and says nothing. That's not a partnership. That's surrender. Here's what women need to understand. When your husband brings up an issue with your behavior, he's giving you something valuable. He's trusting you enough to be honest. He's investing in the relationship's future by addressing problems before they become catastrophic. He's showing you respect by treating you like an adult who can handle feedback. Your response to that trust determines the health of your marriage. If you respond with defensiveness, deflection, and drama, you teach him that honesty is punished. You train him to hide concerns, tolerate problems, and emotionally withdraw. You transform him from a partner into a manager of your emotions. But if you respond with, "You're right, let me think about this," or "I didn't realize that was affecting you, help me understand," or even, "I'm not sure I agree, but let's talk through it calmly," you create safety. You demonstrate that feedback doesn't destroy you. You prove that accountability doesn't threaten the relationship. That response, that maturity, that willingness to be imperfect is what separates marriages that thrive from marriages that slowly die from accumulated unaddressed resentment. The irony is that women who refuse accountability to protect their self-image actually destroy it, because everyone can see through the performance. Your husband knows you're not perfect. Your kids know. Your friends know. The only person who believes the illusion is you. And maintaining that illusion costs you the respect of everyone around you. A woman who can say, "I was wrong, I'll do better," is strong. A woman who deflects, attacks, and manipulates to avoid admitting fault is weak, and deep down she knows it. That's why the defensiveness is so intense. She's not just defending against your observation, she's defending against her own knowledge of her inadequacy. If you're a woman watching this and you recognize yourself in this pattern, understand something. Your defensiveness isn't protecting you, it's isolating you. Every time you choose ego over accountability, you push your husband further away. Every time you escalate instead of acknowledge, you erode his respect. Every time you make conflict more costly than resolution, you train him to stop caring enough to fight. You think you're winning these arguments. You're not. You're winning battles and losing the war. Because the war isn't about who's right in this specific conflict. The war is about whether your husband still believes you're capable of growth, partnership, and honest self-reflection. And with every deflection, you're proving you're not. If you're a man living this reality, understand you're not alone. Millions of men have learned they can't address their wives' behavior without triggering nuclear reactions. Millions of men have stopped trying. Millions of men have accepted that their role is to manage her emotions, not to expect adult partnership. But you don't have to accept it. You can require accountability. You can refuse to engage with deflection tactics. You can calmly restate the issue when she tries to change the subject. You can say, we're not discussing my communication style, we're discussing your overspending. You can hold the line. Will it be comfortable? No. Will she escalate? Probably. Will it be worth it? That depends on whether she's capable of growth or whether she's committed to the performance of perfection regardless of the cost. But one thing is certain, tolerating her inability to handle feedback guarantees nothing changes. And if nothing changes, the relationship slowly becomes a prison where you're not allowed to speak truth because truth upsets the warden. Drop your experience in the comments. Can you address your wife's behavior without triggering a nuclear reaction, or have you learned it's not worth trying? And if this resonated, subscribe. This channel exists to speak truth about relationship dynamics that nobody else will acknowledge, to validate experiences that get dismissed, and to remind both men and women that accountability isn't cruelty, it's the foundation of respect. The truth might be uncomfortable, but it's far less damaging than a relationship built on the illusion that one person is beyond reproach.